Welcome back. The Nifty is now above that 18,500 mark. It's an over 150-point recovery from the lows, but the mid-caps are outperforming. And in that, we have a couple of these pharmaceutical names doing extremely well. Strides has moved to the high point of trade, gain of almost 5.5%. And Granules is the other one, which too has recovered smartly from the lows, currently sitting at the high point of trade. So these are a bunch of stocks which are doing well from the broader markets. But let's also talk about advanced enzymes. We do have Mukund Kabra, who's the Wholetime director of the company, joining us now to discuss the outlook for the company's business going ahead. Thanks a lot, Mr. Kabra, for joining in. You, when we spoke last, said that you are expecting margins to be anywhere between that 40 to 48% mark in the second half of this year, when you expected some normalcy. The first half, you've done margins of around 27, 28 odd percent. And now as we speak, things don't look any much better than what they were in the second quarter. So you want to revise that margin improvement outlook?
Good morning, Mukund. You are right. I said that we will go back to our trajectory of 40 to 48%, but it will require a few more quarters. If you really look into it, from the first quarter and the second quarter, our margins have improved. There is a slowness in the US market, and maybe in a couple of quarters, it should be come back to the normalcy. And then you will see that the margins will go back to our own trajectory. But it will require 2-3 quarters.
What kind of improvement can we expect in the second half, or can we expect any improvement?
We can expect a little bit better on the sale front, but margin will require some more time as we move on, because there is a slowness in the US market.
Okay, all right. Hi, Mr. Kabra. Good morning. You're saying, but ultimately you'll get to this 42 to 48% band. So in the second half of FY24, can we assume that you get back to this band? Is that a possibility? Point number one. Point number two, at the half-year mark, there's no growth in the business. What do you end this year with in terms of a growth?
We will be positive. How much percentage, I don't know at this point of time, but there is a lot of traction from the European market. There is particularly into the food segment. There is a good growth in the animal feed market. What we can see, we can see there is a good growth in the pharma sector and also in the biocatalyst area. The slowness is coming from the specialty division and the nutraceutical division. And overall, I see that we will be positive, but the percentage I cannot claim right now.
So you're saying for the year you'll see some growth, right?
Yeah, that's right.
You want to go with mid single digits or mid double digits, something in that vicinity?
Yeah, it will be a single digit.
Single digit. And the other question about margins going back to that 42 to 48%, second half of next fiscal, right?
That's what we can see at this point of time.
Okay.
All right. Your thoughts on the nutraceutical business, because you did say that it has seen a bit of a slowdown because of the US. And now, as we speak, a lot of people are expecting a recession in the next calendar year as well. Have inventories picked up in the US? Can you give us a sense of how that business is likely to do going forward? What proportion of your overall sales comes from there?
Yes, almost 40% of our sales come from the US business. Yes, you're right. There are certain inventory build-up in the US with the customer. The trend seems to be changing from this quarter. And probably as we move on in the next 2-3 quarters, we should come back to the normalcy. That's what at this point of time we can make it, but we'll see.
How do you define normalcy? I mean, could you give us a sense? What is normalcy? 15 to 20% growth?
The growth will come up. At this point of time, we see that there is a degrowth in the US market in terms of dollar revenue, or maybe it's more or less neutral. Yes, so the growth will come back maybe in 2-3 quarters.
Okay, all right. You also mentioned about this animal healthcare division. I think in the last year it was only around 10% of business. But I recall you told us that that's the big driver. For this year, what does it end in terms of revenues? Next couple of years, you will give us a trajectory. I think the number that you were guiding for is that at some point of time it goes to 200 crores, 150 to 200 crores. For this year, what does it end with? For FY24, what does it end with?
I'm sorry, but I don't have numbers at this point of time in front of me. But what I can say is there is a good growth which is happening from the Asian markets at this point of time. And there is a good growth which is happening into the food segment from the European area. So These are the two areas which is really driving it. Also, like last time I mentioned about Russia, and Russia is also driving the growth in terms of like food enzymes and other enzymes.
So, could you give us a sense of how much these geographies will be as a percentage of your sales going forward? Europe was what, 5-6% last year?
Yes, it's a slow movement, but the way I look at it is like in the Europe right now there is a lot of demand which is coming up, or the pool which is coming up from the customer. Of course, like in our business, to convert the customer into the business or revenue takes some time. So maybe in a two to three quarters we will see that. But before also, like we said in the last in the next 4 to 5 years, we should be about $20-25 million dollar business in the coming from Europe and particularly from the food. And we see that like we are on the track.
Okay, all right. The other aspect, Mr. Kabra, was I believe there were some supply chain issues in the first half of the year, and they were mostly unresolved. But the hope was that will gradually start getting resolved. Is that the direction that it's heading into?
Yes, you are right, like absolutely right. The prices are more or less stabilizing, but on a higher levels at this point of time. They are not really going down to the bottom levels, what we used to enjoy like last year. We are doing a lot of work on the R&D front to improve the productivity and to neglect that. Some of the small amount of the cost we are trying to pass on as well. So overall, we are working on it and probably it should be okay.
All right, we take that point. The last time we spoke, it was also on the back of the promoter's stake coming down in the company, and you had assured that the promoters aren't looking to sell any more of their stake in the company itself. But at the same time, a lot of the analysts also believe that maybe a significant acquisition or some sort of key management appointment, etc., or leadership appointment or strengthening could actually be re-rating triggers for you. Could you give us a sense of what you're thinking in that direction in terms of M&A and any sort of additions to your team?
First of all, like I never said that the promoters' stake will come down or it will not come down, because as I always said, there are like two promoters. One promoter still has 7% of stake, and I'm not sure like whether he will sell or he will not sell. In terms of merger and acquisitions, yes, we are always looking for the merger and acquisition opportunity. At this point of time, also like we are looking for a couple of opportunities. In the last board meeting, we have announced a small acquisition, but that will really help us in like building the plant-based enzymes into our portfolio, and we'll see as we move on.
You think that you can close out something in this fiscal itself? We have only 3 months to go.
Maybe in this fiscal or maybe in the first quarter of the next fiscal.
Okay, and the size would be how much? Couple of 100 crores?
No, it will be smaller, maybe towards the half of it, but let's see.
100 crores?
Yeah, 70-80 crores, roughly.
70-80 crores. Good speaking to you, Mr. Kabra. Let's hope that things recover from here on, and FY24 is a far better year for you than what FY23 is shaping up to be. As we speak, the stock in the last 12 months, in fact, is lower by 12% odd. But if you pull up, I think, today's chart, if I'm not mistaken, it's at the high point of the day. Well, we'll slip into a short break. You come back, we'll focus on markets and a couple of stocks as well.